Hi everybody, it's Jack Graham with another video here today in the series Straight Talk with Jack. We're going to talk about some records I found. I'm here in Tennessee and I'm south of Knoxville, on the south side of Knoxville. Took some time the other day to visit a new record store in the area. It's quite early here. It's actually before sunrise. I think I woke up about an hour ago, but I wanted to get this done. I'm flying back to the Pacific Northwest today. For those of you who may know, I live currently in the Pacific Northwest, which is going to change probably in about a year. But we're here in Tennessee, south of Knoxville. And I took some time the other day to hit a new record store. It's quite an interesting one, in that there was a lot of good jazz there, and I had to leave before it got out of control. But it was a good day. But I was very surprised to find what I found there. I have a feeling that whoever owns this store, called Basement Records, is pretty knowledgeable about jazz. Most of everything that's in there is priced according to Discogs, which is fair. There wasn't a selection of early Blue Note pressings or anything really exotic. I don't buy records for the investment end of it. I buy them for the music end, and I found some really great things here that some things that I really liked, and some things that I thought would sound good on vinyl as well. I'm going to go through them with you today and talk about them a little bit. All these, I don't know how many there are here. It's got to be maybe about 20 recordings. And all of these together cost me about $200 with tax, about $220. And we'll talk about that too. Some great finds. One of the most expensive recordings I found here was a sealed copy for $35.99, made in Germany, of Keith Jarrett's Cologne concert. This is, when you look to see the best-selling jazz albums of all time, for some reason, a lot of lists don't put this in. They call it a piano recording. This record sold 4 million copies. And there's a lot of, maybe we should do a video just on this one day. There's a lot of stories about how this was made and some of the problems that were made that had happened during the recording in Germany. But sealed copy on ECM, $35. And I'm sure this is somewhat of a reissue, but it is sealed. It ought to sound really well, really good rather. Here's an interesting record. I'm not a real big Erroll Garner fan. I like Earl's playing. Maybe I should listen to more. But this is the original Columbia mono recording of Concert by the Sea. This is one of the most famous, I think it probably is Erroll Garner's most famous recording. It's on Columbia, and as you can see, they call this a 6-eye Columbia. 3 on the right, 3 on the left. Theoretically, this is supposed to sound better than the 2 eyes. I think it's minimal. But it's in great shape. I don't see any scratches on this at all. I have not played any of these yet. Oh, there's a little nick, not a nick, but a little blemish on side 2. But for a record that was sold in 1950, I think it was 56, if I'm not mistaken, it was a great find. And this was there in the store for $7. $7. These folks clean their records, and they look really great. But I think this probably sounds better than I think it should sound for $7. So we'll see. Concert by the Sea, Erroll Garner and Carmel. 1956, long time ago. Again, these are not in any order of anything. This is a reissue of a record. I don't know the original title, but it's titled here, Art Farmer. And on this recording is Art Farmer, flugelhorn. Really, really great, tasty player, very warm player. Art Farmer, Charles McPherson on alto, Tommy Flanagan piano, Steve Swallow bass. Ron Carter's on a couple of recordings here. So this may be a compilation of one or two other records, but I think these, it doesn't say when this was made, but it's on Upfront Records. Upfront Records. Art Farmer. Again, this was $9 from 1964. I think it might have been, like I said, might have been a reissue. But again, good shape, and I'm looking forward to listening to that as well. I love Phil Woods' playing. He did a lot of recording, not a lot, but a few recordings with Art Farmer as well. This is on the Jazz International label. Again, a $7 purchase with Art Farmer, Phil Woods, Teddy Kotick, Paul Motian, and Eddie Costa. I know that Teddy Kotick did a lot of recording back in the day with Phil. And this, I don't know when this goes back to. There's no date on this record. But anything with Phil Woods and Art Farmer on, I'm up for. Again, in really, really good condition. One of the things that I always look for in a record to see how the vinyl's going to sound is the smoothness of the dead wax and the cleanliness. And this is in real good shape. Again, Basement Records cleans all their records, which is really nice. A lot of places don't do that on used stuff, but they do. And this is not a plug. I don't know the gentleman who owns it. He wasn't there. But a nice selection. Here's an old roulette recording with the Basie band called Chairman of the Board. This I've heard before and is one of Basie's really great recordings going back to 1959. This is a mono. It's a heavy record. The Roulette Birdland series, 52032. And this is one of Basie's great band. I think Joe Newman is in this. Of course, Frank Foster, Marshall Royal, Johnny Hodges, sounding player. And it's really a fun band. I heard this band when I was real young in the Riverboat. It was a birthday present, and my mom took me to hear this band, the Riverboat in New York, over the Christmas holiday, and it really blew me away. But this is an old roulette from 1959 with the original paper insert. I do replace these inserts with MoFi sleeves, which I will do eventually, and of course store the record not in the sleeve of the record, but on the outside of the outer sleeve, facing up so dust can't get in. Great record, and it's in good shape. I can't wait to hear it. Last video I talked about some Oscar Peterson on Pablo, and I found another one. I think I have this on CD. I'll have to look. But this again was a $7 purchase. And this, I believe, goes back to the mid to late 70s. But Count Basie, Louis Bellson, Ray Brown, J.J. Johnson, Harry Edison, Eddie Davis, Zoot Sims. So in one recording here, you have Harry Edison, you have Zoot, you have J.J. Johnson, of course, Ray Brown, Louis Bellson, and Count Basie. Not a bad rhythm section. And again, on Pablo, really clean recording. Really nice, clean recording. on Pablo Records. Again, mid to late 70s on this guy. Yeah, get that in here. There we go. There we go. And again, I buy these records for the music, not for the investment quality. And, you know, you could probably buy this on Discogs, maybe $10, $13 in pretty good condition. Some of these are just as fun to have as these new reissues, which are great as well. Here's an interesting record. This is on Dot Records, D-O-T, Dot Records, and it's called Steve's Songs, with arrangements by Manny Album, great arranger from California. And the Steve is Steve Allen, who was, I believe, the original host of The Tonight Show prior to Jack Parr. Johnny Carson followed Jack Parr. Steve Allen was a great writer. I believe he wrote the Christmas song. That's maybe his most famous, but these are all tunes written by Steve Allen. And great people on this record. Gene Quill, Al Cohn, among the sax players, Bernie Glow, what a great lead player, Bernie Glow from New York, Ernie Royal, Nick Travis, and Art Farmer on different cuts. And trombone, you had Bob Brookmeyer, among others, Dick Katz on piano, Milt Hinton on bass, Ozzie Johnson, Eddie Costa on vibes. I can't wait to hear this. And again, it looks like a great recording. This was a $5 recording. I'm not sure if this is in good shape. It's going to sound really good with Manny Album doing the arrangements. The inner sleeve is not in great shape, but on Dot Records, I don't know when this goes back to, but it's got to be late 50s. It is a stereo record, so, but it's in great shape. Steve's Songs, Steve Allen. Steve doesn't play on this, but he wrote the songs, and Manny Album's a great arranger, and always has great musicians on his band. Don Patterson, a great Hammond B3 player, recorded predominantly, I think, on Prestige. This goes back to 1968. It's an original Prestige. Well, it's not an original Prestige. It's probably the second or third, probably the second pressing on this. But this came from Bergenfield, New Jersey studio, so it's prior to their move to Hackensack, New Jersey. I say that because I actually lived in Bergenfield till I was about 3 and then moved one town over. So you had Bergenfield, the town I lived in was New Milford, and right next to New Milford was Hackensack, Teaneck on the other end, right outside New York City. But this is, again, in great shape. Don Patterson, and the cool thing about this is Pat Martino is on this record. And this is not Pat's first recording, but I didn't want to highlight anything on here, but they talk about how young Pat was. And man, I'll tell you what, he's a great guitar player, really plays well on this recording. You can find this on Discogs as well. I saw some for sale. This goes back to 1968. This I paid $10 for on Prestige. Stan Getz on Storyville. This was a $20 record on Royal Roost Records, the old Royal Roost. This goes back, I believe, to 1957. It says Stan Getz at Storyville. Storyville was a club, I believe, in Boston. And Stan Getz is on this. Al Haig is on piano, again, Teddy Kotick on bass, Jimmy Rainey on guitar, Tiny Khan on drums, recorded All these factors lead to one thing, a happy swinging band. A young swinging Stan Getz is featured in this album with the organization which together have created the most happy sounds since Bud, Max, Bird, and Miles. Interesting. I think Teddy Reed might have produced this, a great jazz producer. But Stan Getz, early Stan Getz from 1957. We'll see. I'm a big Wes Montgomery fan as well, and Wes recorded on predominantly on Riverside and then went over to Verve. But prior to that, he made a record on World Pacific, and there's some great notes. This is called The Montgomery Brothers and Five Others on World Pacific, a stereophonic long-playing record. And they, in the linear notes here, the liner notes, they talk about the players on here. This was one of Wes's first recordings. It's really interesting on here. It was recorded in fall of '57, and it was funny because we had Buddy Montgomery and Monk Montgomery, Wes's brothers, on vibes, and Monk on Fender electric bass. Wes on guitar, of course. Wayman Punchy Atkinson and Tony Alonzo Pookie Johnson, both from Akron, Ohio. And it says on this back of these notes, it was quite interesting. This was not a well-planned recording session on World Pacific. These guys both had day jobs. Who knows what they did during the day? But they got to record at night, and it wasn't well planned. And I don't think, according to the notes here, the musicians weren't really that happy about this recording. But what's interesting on this is I believe this is Freddie Hubbard's first recording. I'll have to look back. I think I read this the other night, that this was Freddie Hubbard's very, very first recording with Wes Montgomery. So, you know, you find these things, and when you start reading about them, it's even more interesting. It says, the session heard here, despite the best pre-planning possible, came off in spite of greatest handicaps. Monk Montgomery said, we had planned a date for some time in the fall of '57 when Buddy and I were working in San Francisco. The arrangements that were done for this never made it to the date. I think they just got there and they didn't have a whole lot of rehearsal. So they only had 2 days rehearsal before they cut the tunes. So, you know, it's real interesting stuff when you read this. But I think this is Freddie Hubbard's very first recording on World Pacific, the Montgomery Brothers and Five Others. Pretty cool. This I paid $20 for. This was the winner, I think, of the day. I think this is being reissued in the new series that's coming out on, I think Acoustic Sounds is involved, and Contemporary Records. Bernie Grunman did the original mastering and is doing the remastering. But this is Barney Kessel and the Poll Winners with Kessel, Shelly Manne, Ray Brown on the Contemporary. And this is the Deep Groove Contemporary here. And again, in really great shape. Really, really great shape. And boy, I know this is going to sound good. I've got to find a way to get this one back with me today so I can listen to this. It's a great recording. If you don't have this, get the reissue that's coming. It's going to sound really great. And I know that this one already sounds great. Contemporary had such a great sound. Another Phil Woods Quintet, and this is Phil's famous quintet. This was a $6 record on Black Hawk Records. I don't know the date on this, but Tom Harrell, Hal Galper, Steve Goodwin, and Gilmore and Bill Goodwin on drums. This was one of my favorite Phil Woods quintets, and great tunes. And again, it was nice and clean. A $6 record. It's what happens when you go into these new stores that sometimes you get really surprised. Mel Lewis, Thad Jones in Munich on the A&M Horizon record. They play a couple of their standard tunes, and this is the band with Jerry Dodge and Eddie Zickus, Greg Herbert's in this band, Pepper Adams, of course. Trumpet section is Lynn Nicholson, Al Porcino, Erroll Garner, and Frank Gordon. And then Harold Danko replaces Roland Hanna on piano. And this was mastered in California by Bernie Grundman as well. Bernie worked at A&M for many years and mastered this one. And I thought I found another one in here too, I'm not sure. Yeah, there was 2 Mel Lewis records in this store, both on A&M Horizon, both in good conditions. This was $8, this was $6. Sweet for Pops and live in Munich. Good sounding records. Why? Bernie Grundman. Great master of mastering. Another West Montgomery record. This was a $7 record on Jazzland, but this is an original jazz classic reissue. I don't know when they reissued this, but they reissued it on the old Riverside Looking label. This is not an original Riverside. It's an original jazz classic. But this is another record I had when I was very young and I wanted to replace. George Shearing plays piano on this. Again, I'm not a big George Shearing fan, but he's a good player. And I remember this record. This record has some sentimental value for me. It's one of the first records I ever owned when I was maybe 12, 13. Really a fun record. Another Pablo, Oscar with Joe Pass, Martin Drew, I think he's a British drummer, and Niels Orsted Henning Peterson, great bass player from Sweden or Denmark, I'm not sure. This was a great one of Oscar's great trios with Joe Pass as the 4th player. Again, a very clean Pablo recording, from the mid-'80s on this one. I remember seeing this group many times in the Blue Note in New York, where you're right up on stage if you get there and spend the money on good seats. And it's a fun place to see Oscar. It was for me. But again, a Pablo, great recording. Frank Morgan, very underrated alto player from California. Did some recording in New York, did some touring in New York. Very tasty player. He's just a smooth player. Great ideas. Almost sounds like Art Pepper at times. But you had Cedar Walton on this, Buster Williams, and Billy Higgins, and you can't go wrong with that trio. Johnny Coles played flugelhorn. I believe he played trumpet for a while with the Basie band. But this was recorded, I believe, back in the mid-'80s at the Village Vanguard in New York. And this is on, I don't know what label this is on. That's a good question. I should know that before I do. Oh, contemporary. How do you like that? This is a mid-'80s contemporary. But they all sound good. Contemporary you can't go wrong with. Frank Williams, why he's on contemporary is because he's a California guy. and the contemporary folks knew about Frank Williams, Frank Morgan rather, and this will sound great as well. This was I believe a $5 record, if I remember right. $6 on this guy. $6 for a contemporary, even not an original like a 60s or 70s contemporary. Mid 80s will sound great. And finally, not really a jazz record, but a collectible record. There's some interesting playing on this. This is the original direct-to-disc record done in the 70s, recorded from the studio directly to the master disc. If you're into collectible audiophile records, you probably own this. Cover's in great shape. It opens up here. Doug Sachs did the producing and I believe the mastering on this, and it sounds great. You know, Plas Johnson's on this. May Organ plays piano. There's some good players on here. Some I don't know. Victor Feldman's on this. But it really sounds good, and it's made to show off audio back in the day. And I'm trying to remember what year, but it is in the audio in the early 70s on Sheffield Lab, and it is Sheffield Lab #1. And you can see it is I won't say it's 180 gram, probably pretty close, in really, really good condition. And it'll sound good. Musically, it's okay, but it's just made to sound really good. This went directly from the microphone right onto the master. Nothing in between, and that's why it's really clean. So, folks, that's it. It was a big haul here in Tennessee. I'll be flying back today in a few hours. It's still real early in the morning here. The sun's just coming up. But thank you all for watching. Please subscribe. If you have any comments, leave them for me. I'll answer everything. Like the channel, etc. And we'll do another video this week when I get back to the Pacific Northwest. Thank you all again. Bye-bye.